You're listening to Zoom the TBT with Charge and Hayner.
Hey guys, it's Charge and Hayner with Zoom the TBT, and tonight we got Shawn Willet and Leonard representing D2. Guys, what's going on tonight?
Shawn, what's up, man? Good to see you, brother.
Good to see you too, man. I just came from the gym. Just got back home in the States, so feeling good about that, basically.
So you mentioned getting home too, and obviously just getting from the gym. So this whole season for every league, everywhere, some didn't even run, was played in the shadow of COVID. And you mentioned getting to the gym. How has playing overseas been affected by the pandemic?
It was affected a lot. Basically, we couldn't do a lot of little things that we were used to doing, like going to the gym when we wanted to. We couldn't really go places that we wanted to go. Everywhere was closed the whole year. Like the bars, the restaurants, like all of that was closed. So basically, it was just a lot of just practice and the room and the store. Basically, that's all we could do, really. There was literally nothing else.
That sounds delightful. I heard you mention the no bars thing. You were in Germany. Did you develop a taste for any of the local beers? It is like the capital of beer in the world.
Not gonna lie, like the German beer, I don't think they get their name for the taste, because the taste is not that well. But the fact that it does is crazy. Like it'll have like 5 or 7% alcohol, and you'll still feel like that first beer. Like it's crazy though. But the taste.
I was actually in Utah once for a basketball camp, and they have a limit of how the alcohol is limited at 5% for beer. So I went and got beer. I'm like, I need beer after practice. I want to have a beer. And I looked at the alcohol and I'm like, where's the real beer? They're like, oh, no, you're in Utah. There is no real beer. I'm like, what? Yeah, I've been to Germany. So the city you were in, tell me a little bit. It was Heidelberg, correct?
Yep.
Okay. So first of all, yeah, go ahead.
Oh, it was a great city. I loved Heidelberg. Loved it. Like, it was like, how do I want to explain? It was kind of like a Charlotte area, like really. It was kind of like a Charlotte area, like a nice area. Like everyone would always walk outside whenever the sun was out and the weather was good, which was rare. But everyone would always be outside on the lawn, that they would call it, like, because they have like a river that goes to like the middle of the city, like a big river. And there's like a couple of bridges on like each like side. And like people would just be on the side of the lawn, just outside and always running. And it was a great scenery. Like I love the area for sure.
Oh, wow. That's crazy. So the funny story about, I've been in Germany a couple of times, never planned, just like as delays or something. And actually we were on a flight once that left out of Frankfurt, which is, I'm looking now, is an hour north of Heidelberg. So I'm sure you got to go over there maybe on a weekend or something when you were down there.
Yep.
But and Frankfurt's nothing special. You ever have apple wine?
Not that I know of. Is that the wine that's hot?
No, it's the apple vinegar tasting drink. That's the worst alcohol I've ever. Yeah, Grant's face. That's how it tastes. It tastes like Grant's face right there.
I never had that.
Yeah, you're missing nothing. But no, Germany is an interesting place. This is a place I wish you wouldn't mind playing. Now, the key thing we mentioned with your team is with Academics Heidelberg, you guys got promoted.
Yep.
So explain because we have American fans here who are, I'm not gonna say dumb, but they have a one-shot league. How big a deal is it for a team to get promoted?
Well, it's a big deal because only 2 teams can get promoted. Sometimes only 1 team, but this year they decided to do 2 teams. So the final team who won the championship and the runner-up got promoted. Mm-hmm. Because of COVID, we couldn't really do the playoffs like how we wanted to do it. So this year we did 4 teams on each side. So the top eight teams, we did 4 on each side. And we broke that up. So it was, I think, the 1 and 4 and the 5 and 8 seed, I want to say, played with each other. And then the 2 and 3 and the 6 and 7 seed played with each other. Okay. So basically you had to, whoever won the most games out of 6 games, because you played each team twice.
Yeah, home and away.
So whoever won the most games, then they move up automatically. Like you move up. So like if you win all 6, you automatically move up, and we automatically move to the first league, because that's how they did it this year. You automatically go to the first league if you win out your bracket.
That's awesome.
So
you're basically a hero now in this town. Like your name will be remembered for like
Oh yeah, forever.
years. Yeah, you're
Yeah.
you're a god in this town. That's kind of crazy.
We went to like the president's office and like signed a book that the prince
Wow.
and queen, the prince and princess of England signed. Princesses and queens from all over the world signed this book. Like it was crazy. We signed where our names are forever in that book. That people who royalty signed the book. It was crazy.
That's amazing. I love one of the things I've really enjoyed about becoming part of the TBT community is hearing these stories, because people have this massive misconception that basketball begins and ends with the NBA. And I always like to say there's 450 jobs. There's 30 teams, 15 spots. If you're 451, you got to work somewhere else. And I think people don't understand what that means, because like I'm an architect. I'm a very good one. I'm extremely good. I'm not one of the 450 best architects in the world. There is no fucking way I'm 451 even. And I'm good. I'm extremely good at it. So the idea that like 451 doesn't matter is insane to me. It always has been. So hearing like these stories of people just playing in front of appreciative crowds and still winning these championships like you have and promoting a team, these are incredible. And Grant, this is a great transfer to you, because like you got one of your players is one of your alumni. One somebody you coached in college. You're still an active coach at the Division II level. You have a lot of players playing overseas. You have a lot of players playing at really high levels, and people have this misconception of what playing at Division II means. You want to disabuse some people of how short-sighted that is?
Obviously there's 360 Division I teams. And to be honest with you, the very elite Division II team, top 50 to 100, could beat a good portion of those Division I teams.
No doubt. And do. You did this last year, in fact, I think, didn't you?
Correct. Yeah, we beat Howard by 20, who had a 5-star recruit, and the guy that's labeled as an NBA future NBA player. I don't know if that's going to happen, but and we've beaten other teams like VCU before, and when Shawn was there, we played Wake Forest and lost by 1. And so really the levels, at the highest levels, when you're talking about a top 10 Division I team, they're a little bit different in how big they are, but for the most part, elite basketball teams can compete with elite basketball teams. And Shawn was a part of 2 phenomenal basketball teams.
Yeah. It's pretty interesting too, because I love hearing about that. And what's the farthest you guys ever got when Shawn was on the roster at Queens?
Final 4, and we lost in double overtime. We were up 5 with 26 seconds to go in overtime, and it was tough. Shawn and another one of our guys on our team were in foul trouble, and we just couldn't pull it out. But then next year, Shawn took us to Elite 8 as well. So
wow, that's a good run. It's not bad. So you're winning championships and making Final Fours. It's not a bad little run. Now, Shawn, you mentioned the gym. Personally, I've had a hard time getting a gym. I'm based in New York. We closed the gyms for quite a while, and I've put on a little weight during COVID. By a little, I mean a lot more than I want to admit. I have to get working out just so when you guys meet me in Charleston, I look like a fat tub of lard. But how hard was it to get your workouts in a pandemic? Like when this happened? Like I'm always fascinated, because obviously your job, you're wearing a Go Lift shirt, which I love. That means something I need to do. But the reality is like, it's hard to stay in shape when everything, even physical activities, can cause a disease to spread. So how was that able to be balanced in countries that had major restrictions like Germany?
Well, we would only get to work out really for practice. The coach would try to have our trainer do like not too hard of a little workout before or after practice, or maybe some days we'll do like a morning workout and then practice in the afternoon and stuff like that. Like we try to work ways around it. But we didn't get to, like in the beginning in like August to like maybe I want to say October or September, we got to go inside the gym. But then after that, like it was closed, like no one can go into the gyms, and it was kind of tough. But we did stuff at home on our own. Like it was just something that like it didn't really affect me, just because
look at you, you're in incredible shape. Yeah, you're in the kind of shape that if I work out every day, I would still never get into.
Yeah, so it didn't really affect me as much, but other guys it really affected a lot though.
What I like about that too, Shawn, is how modest you are, calling yourself a freak of nature. I really love that. That's not completely kidding. So,
at some point you got to accept it.
Oh yeah. You have to accept the terrible reality. Your body's in incredible shape. That's I'm praying for you to come to grips with that, Shawn, in your life.
It's unbelievable. He's 3% body fat and eats Chick-fil-A twice a day.
How?
Not possible.
See, the problem is, and my parents don't watch this, so I can say this, and they do, I'll just deny it. But my parents are both, they wouldn't even know where to find it, probably. My parents are both shaped like bowling pins. So I've got the worst genetics we have. Like, they're both wonderful people, but they both have this shape. And I have had to fight my ass off to not have that shape. But the pandemic took my gym away, and I don't really like running. So I like to lift weights. And that burns a lot of calories. I like that they always say, oh, you lift weights to get heavy. Now, if you lift enough weights, you'll burn calories too. That's very true.
Yeah.
But the reality is, like, all they did is take my gym away and leave me with whiskey. What do you think is going to happen here? There's just nothing good. So, Grant, let's talk a little bit. You mentioned Shawn having a good career. I'm looking at the roster. You have a lot of guys that obviously you have some guys that played for you. A couple guys played for you. Looks like 3 or 4. And then one thing you mentioned, though, is size. And the thing that happens, this is true of low majors at the D1 level, even mid majors, and also at the Division II level. You mentioned size. You didn't even mention of top 10 teams having a lot of size. The size is the difference. Your roster has a lot of people under 6'6". Is that something that will affect the way you run your offense and defense?
Well, you got to look at it one way. Like when you're tall and you're bigger, you're usually slower.
Correct.
And we're going to be more mobile and fast. So how we run our offense will definitely, we will enjoy playing in space more often than some of the other teams. And so I look at it as an advantage offensively completely. And that's the way you got to do it. Now, how it will affect our defense and how we guard. But what the key part is, if you're going to be a little bit shorter, is how strong you are at each position and their ability to not give up space.
Yeah.
And to not just get pounded at the basket. And last year we were a little bit smaller and we were fine until we had our 2 tallest players get hurt in the middle of the game.
Yeah. I remember that team. So you guys did come off against Big X, which, and we're not speaking out of school. I don't think Big X is going to run this year because a couple of their guys have ended up on other teams. So it looks like they're not even going to run, I'm guessing. So we haven't heard anything about them. And a bunch of their players have gone to other teams, including reconstituting Carmen's crew. But they're going to Columbus. They're not your problem. You guys are going to West Virginia. Talking about strength, we're looking a little bit back at Shawn's stats. And at one point earlier in the season, he was averaging something like almost 10 rebounds a game for the first team he played for, which is a little lower down the things you get traded. So Shawn, being 6'4", but playing a combo forward, a little bit of a power, even being a combo forward. I assume there's just a lot of leg days to make sure you can hold the point of attack for rebounding, right? A lot of squats, I assume.
No.
No? The man says no? The man says no squats? Okay.
No
I will tell you this, Shawn has the most incredible second jump you'll ever see. Mm-hmm. So when he misses his first shot, sometimes I think he does it on purpose because then he knows he's going to beat the guy up for the second one and just tap it back in. And it's really incredible. But his ability to go carve out space with his shoulders and the speed of which he attacks the ball, he gets the ball before anyone else.
Totally makes sense. No, it's definitely a good skill to get, good skill to have. So you guys are going to West Virginia, which again, it looks like our press pass has been conditionally approved. We're not, it's not formal yet, but we did talk to Jake and it looks like we're going to be able to come and charging aside. We're going to cover Charleston is where we're going to go. So we're going to hopefully see you guys. Hopefully see you guys win some games. Obviously we're hoping well. Have you started looking at the other teams? Because that's a really competitive region. I think it's the region that still to this day still has the most applicants. I think you guys are already over having a lot of applicants. Like, is there any teams in there that like you find interesting you might be facing up against? Have you started even thinking in terms of scouting, or you're waiting until the brackets get released?
And whether this is the right way to look at it or not, this is not the way I did it. It was really closest to where our training camp is. But
sure,
I think teams see the protected seeds, the teams that are already in, and they heard that and say, we can beat those guys. Because they got a bunch of overweight guys that don't necessarily look like they're playing pro, but they were really good last year. So I'm not saying they should think that, but I'm just, shots fired. I think people look at them as the weak link.
Well, what's really funny about this, and maybe Shawn will laugh about this too, is like literally, and we've talked to Ott, by the way, is the funniest guy. He's clearly got a sense of humor about it. But I don't think a single team has come to this podcast who's going to West Virginia and not said, we wouldn't mind playing Heard That. I'm like, it's gonna be hilarious because what's going to happen is one of two things. It's going to be one of these two things. Heard That is going to lose in the first round to like some 14 seed, or they're going to make all of you eat your words. I don't think there's going to be a whole lot in between. They're either going to like flame out early or just rampage through the region. And I think it's going to be one or the other. I don't think it's going to go somewhere in between. I think the interesting team, I think Sideline out there might be pretty interesting because actually that might be a team that you're not scared to match up with. As good as they are, Billy Clapper's in front of the pod. They have a wonderful team. They're also not big. They're not a huge team. They have Thompson, who's obviously a huge guy and a real active player, but their strength is a backcourt. So that's a team, as good as they are, you might match up pretty well. So you definitely are in the line for a pretty good seed. What kind of seeding do you guys think would your team merit, considering last year and considering the quality of the roster you're bringing in?
Honestly, and I think Shawn can attest to this because we're always kind of the underdog role. Like no one expects a ton out of us. Like just put us on a line and we got to win 3 to make it to the next deal. And you got to take one at a time. Yeah. But to be honest with us, like we're happy that they respect us a little bit more, but it really just matters that we get in. Because the first year when Shawn was with us and we played Kentucky and no one thought we were going to win. And we beat them pretty solidly. And maybe
in Kentucky, in Lexington.
Yes, in Lexington. And Shawn, I think that game had 16 or 18 and 9 or 10. And I just like in the end, we just need to get out there on the floor and attack them, and hopefully they don't attack us as well.
That absolutely makes sense. Now, Shawn, you're a 2-year veteran in this. You played for D2, and you also played last year for War Tampa. Friend of the pod, Matt's a great guy. With the team you have coming in, a lot of these guys you guys have played before. So like, how much does having an experienced program in TBT help? Because you see a lot of teams that are coming in with a lot of great rosters, but have no TBT experience. And you're like, it's a completely different animal than playing in different events, correct?
Yep. Yeah, it really is. I feel like guys don't, like, even when I came back, like the year when I went to War Tampa, like guys who haven't played, like they don't understand that in that TBT, like this is like one game and you're done. Like nobody's gonna just come because they see your name, like what team your name is. Like they don't look at you and be like, oh, these guys. We're gonna just let them have
it. They don't
like,
care.
No, we're all here to win. So nobody cares about where you played at, who you are, and what you do. Like nobody cares about that. Like this is all up for grabs for whoever. And I don't think guys understand that.
Yeah, it's interesting because I'm looking at the thing about the West Virginia thing is there's a lot of teams who have been there before. There's some teams that haven't though, and I'm really wondering, like looking at some of these teams, like one that Mental Toughness is coming in there. This is a new team. You're going to have also like the Founding Fathers. I don't think have run before. They may have, but they're a smaller squad. The Du Bois Dream is actually running, which is interesting. I didn't think they were going to run. So it's a pretty crowded field already. I think it's going to be one of the more interesting regions. Looking at Charleston, though, I actually was looking when I booked the hotel. Is there anything like, it's obviously a business trip, but like, have you guys ever been to Charleston?
No, I've never actually. I've spent one night of my life in West Virginia, and it was at a whitewater rafting place for a friend's bachelor party. But I don't think, no, and this is no offense to TBT, like I don't think West Virginia is a destination location, and obviously the guys from Heard That think it is.
Yeah, maybe it is. I mean, it is interesting in why they picked the cities this year, because I really think and this is something that's interesting because alumni teams seem to be the future of the event, which is better or worse. We had Dan on a couple of weeks ago who couldn't have been a better guest, and he said he doesn't want to see it go only alum. He wants to see teams that have causes and everything. But it does seem like they have made a bet on college towns, because the 4 cities that are hosting, Columbus, Wichita, Peoria, and Charleston, are all college-based sports economies. Like there's not a professional team in the bunch. I don't think there aren't. And they're all they're all expensive flights. So that's always a bummer. Like they're all hard to get to with planes. There'll be a lot of driving to these things. But it is interesting, like seeing where they've picked. It is interesting to see they picked these cities for this thing. Now, about the alumni thing, and we asked this question because we had this Twitter interaction. You actually had mentioned this, that were they counting you as an alum team? I remember we had this interaction on Twitter because they listed alum teams, and they didn't seem to count the mixed teams. Do you guys consider yourselves an alum team, or just that you're representing an entire division? Maybe not.
No, we're extra special. So just the way it is, we're a specialty team, and I don't want to be considered an alumni team because we have a couple guys from Queens and 2 guys from Ferris, and then guys from Northwest Missouri, but guys that have won national championships, Final Fours, mostly All-Americans. And I don't want to discount that we're just an alumni team, but we're really representing the underserved, the guys that we all eat too.
Oh yeah.
And we eat big too. You know what I mean, Shawn? Like,
Yeah.
so when we're in Germany, we eat just as much as they do. And
Yeah.
I want everyone to know that. And so, no, I don't want to be an alumni team, especially because I don't think the alumni teams, for the most part, don't even stay true to the alumni. Because you'll see a dude from, Illinois playing for Ohio State. I'm sorry. I thought it was an Ohio State team.
Yeah. And I guess it's interesting because like most alumni teams, and that you raise an interesting point, because even with the better schools, like you'll have players in the NBA or you have players who are kind of old. So I'm a well-known Memphis fan. Used to Penny Hardaway bobblehead. We've all talked about this in the podcast. And even the Memphis teams that have been able to form always have teams from their schools. Like we had Tyler Stone, who played, I believe, I forgot where he played actually, but he's a Memphis kid. We had some gentlemen played from we had Terrico White, who now plays for Armored Athlete most years on the team. And it was interesting because like even alumni teams usually have one or two, but it's interesting because like, do you think it's a broader advantage to be able to represent a whole division? Because like if you're like, for example, Showtime went to now a Wofford alumni team, which is great. So they get like McGee who can shoot and they have a few talented guys, but like, does that self-limit your roster compared to being a whole division basically?
I mean, I think that we have a large pool to pick from.
Mm-hmm.
So it gives us an advantage. And as our guys, this will be our third year in it, get more experience. To be Shawn's third time playing in it, and Mike Davis's fourth. And as we get guys that are more experienced pros, we're just going to get better and better.
Yeah, definitely. Shawn, is there anything that people really just to close the book of the D2 thing? Is there something you would say to people who don't think it's high level basketball? Is there some easy way just to get people to realize it is?
Well, if people don't realize it by now, I don't know when they're gonna realize. Like it's guys like I have coaches saying, "Oh, I gave you a chance," coming from like a D2 and this and that, and I would just look at them and be like, "Bro, like you probably made the best decision of your career, like giving me this chance, because now I'm about to show you why I'm better than everybody else and why I was always overlooked and what I had to do to continue to be better than this people." Because us D2, like I'm not gonna say everybody, but like us D2 players, like we understand what it takes, like the grind and how it feels to be overlooked and how much work we have to keep putting in and how much more work we have to do than everybody else just to be somewhat accepted to like where their level of acceptance is to them. So the fact that being at D2 and people just always overlook us, like it's just funny to me at this point. Like I just laugh and be like, I'm just a kid from D2 who came to Germany, was top 3 in points and number 1 in the league in rebounds. And now what? Like now what can they say to me?
Nothing. They can't say nothing to you.
Now
Not a damn thing. You're a promoted champion. You're in a book with presidents and stuff, so you're fine. Yeah, it's pretty interesting. Grant. I guess we should close on this because the whole idea is like of TBT is lets people compete in almost a college-like atmosphere where there's cash on the table, winner takes all, but it's also a chance for people to let people know who the top dog is at these different levels. How much of an incentive is it to your players who weren't recruited at the D1 level, who are that good, to have this avenue to take on a team like a Herd that or a Best Virginia that has that D1 pedigree and make them realize how real you guys are? Like, how much does that motivate your team? I mean, I assume the biggest motivation is the $1 million, just to be very clear, but as a secondary motivation, how much does that help?
I mean, I think it's a huge motivation. Our guys all have a huge chip on their shoulder because of where they came from. And a lot of them weren't. The recruitment at the Division II level is so different than Division I. You know, it's not, you're not on a bunch of internet, sites, and there's not everyone, tweeting at you, and no one really knows. It's way more private. And then when you get there, the media coverage is different. But then at the end, after you go through the process and you look at Shawn Willet and you look at Mike Davis and you look at Justin Pitts and the other guys on our roster, they are playing for as big or more of paychecks than a lot of guys that played high major. And Shawn had a little stint in the G League. And to be honest with you, if they wouldn't have discounted him as a D2 player, he'd probably still be in the G League or maybe in the NBA. And we have a couple guys on our roster that easily could play at that level if the opportunities opened up correctly for them. And so for all of our guys, they do have an unbelievable amount of respect for the jersey they're wearing because they know they're representing a lot of guys that have been overlooked and unheralded for a long time.
Yeah, I like how the team is technically was called at the beginning D2 unheralded, because it is sort of one of those underdog stories where guys who have the skills but weren't recognized get a chance to prove it when the chips are on the table. That's a great way to end it for the show tonight. Shawn, Grant, thanks so much for coming on. We'll post this soon, and it's always a pleasure having you guys on. Hopefully, we'll see you guys in Charleston, and we're going to buy the occasional drink for the losing team. So here's hoping we don't buy you guys a damn drink while we're there.
No, not there. Maybe in another site.
Maybe another site. Gentlemen, thanks for coming on. This was Zoom the TBT with Charge and Hayner signing off.
Hope you enjoyed listening to Zoom the TBT with Charge and Hayner. Subscribe to YouTube, follow on Twitter, and give us your money.